After discovering my savings were gone, my brother shrugged, we needed it more. Trembling, I whispered, then you don't need me either. Hey there, welcome to today's story. Are you new here, or did you just return? Either way, I'm so glad to have you with me. And if you haven't already, I'd really appreciate it if you could help me hit 1,000 subscribers soon. That would give me the motivation to keep bringing more amazing stories to you. Now, let's get into today's tale. The character in this story is facing something truly life-changing. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where trust was broken and you had to pick up the pieces? Stay with me until the end, and I'll show you how this character overcomes the challenges in their path. My name is Olivia. I've been a nurse for as long as I can remember, fighting to make life better for others while sacrificing my own comfort. I was never one for extravagance. Growing up in a small town with my younger brother, Liam, we learned early on that you work hard, save what you can, and keep moving forward. Our father wasn't around, and our mother passed away when I was only 14. Liam and I had to rely on each other for everything, and he was always there for me. Liam had a charm about him that made people trust him. He was good-looking, smooth-talking, the kind of guy you'd expect to walk into a room and light it up with just a smile. But me, I was quieter, a bit more reserved. I never cared for the fancy things in life. All I wanted was to build something meaningful, a small clinic of my own. A place where I could truly care for people without the bureaucratic red tape of hospitals. I'd been saving for years. Every paycheck went into a private account that no one knew about. It wasn't much to some, but to me it was everything. One weekend, my best friend, Sarah, tied the knot. It was a dream wedding, white roses, laughter, twinkling lights. It felt like the universe was finally aligning for me. Liam was there, of course. He looked sharp in his tailored suit, and he kept glancing at me with that grin of his, like everything was going according to plan. We danced, we laughed, and for a moment, I truly believed that life was about to give me a break. That night, Liam drove me home. The radio hummed softly in the background, and we talked about the wedding, Sarah's future, and all the things we wished we could have had if we had more. I thought for once things were perfect. The next week, things began to fall apart. Slowly at first, and then all at once. I was sitting on my couch, mindlessly scrolling through bills on my phone. The light from the screen flickered over the room like a quiet warning, but I wasn't paying attention. My mind was elsewhere, distracted by the usual swirl of exhaustion that came after a 12-hour shift at the hospital. My hands, tired and worn, flicked through the bills as if each one was a chore to get through. But then, something stopped me. I noticed something strange. My checking account was almost empty, just a few dollars. A sickening chill ran through me, one that froze me to my seat. It didn't make sense. I had recently transferred $500 from my savings, and I hadn't made any major purchases. I hadn't even gone out to eat since the wedding, unless you counted the small cafe for coffee. I didn't waste money. That was never my style. Without thinking, I opened my savings app, praying it was some kind of mistake, some glitch in the system. But when the screen loaded, I felt my stomach drop to the floor. $180,000. Gone. Every last penny. Gone. I stared at the screen, my mind racing, my breath shallow. I kept blinking, as if that might somehow make the numbers change, make it all go back to the way it was before. But nothing happened. The cold, empty balance mocked me. $0. The dream I'd spent years building was just gone. All that hard work, all the sleepless nights, all the double shifts I'd worked to save that money, it was like it never existed. I thought I was careful, thought I was smart, thought I had control over everything. But this felt like I had lost control of my entire future in one stroke. I grabbed my phone, hands shaking as I dialed Liam's number. I couldn't think straight. I didn't even care that I was calling him so late at night. My mind was already spiraling, every worst-case scenario running through my head. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe there was some explanation. Maybe. It rang once, then twice. Hey Liv, what's up? His voice, that ever-calm tone, greeted me on the other end. It was as if nothing was wrong, as if everything was just as it should be. But I could hear the flicker of unease in his voice, even though he was trying to hide it. I didn't waste any time with pleasantries. Liam, where's the money? What happened to it? The words tumbled out in a rush, and I realized only then how badly my hands were trembling. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Too long. Long enough for the doubt to begin gnawing at me. Then finally he spoke again. We needed it, Liv. Family comes first. I borrowed it. Don't worry, we'll pay you back. Borrowed it? Borrowed it? A surge of heat rose in my chest, flooding my face. I could barely keep my voice steady. You took my money without asking? This was for my clinic. My future. This is everything to me. I could almost feel his eyes rolling through the phone. It wasn't gone forever. We just needed a little boost. His response was smooth, almost too smooth, too rehearsed. He had answers ready. Excuses lined up. It sounded like he wasn't even really sorry. More like he was trying to convince himself that this was somehow okay. But it wasn't okay. It wasn't okay at all. I squeezed my eyes shut, fighting back the tears that threatened to spill. My heart pounded in my chest. I had to hold it together. This wasn't just about money. This was about trust. This was about everything I had worked for. The clinic. My life's work. And he had just taken it. Without asking. Without a second thought. What do you mean, just a boost, Liam? My voice cracked. You didn't ask me. You didn't even tell me you were taking it. This was my future. My dream. How could you do this to me? I could almost hear him shifting. A rustle of movement on the other end. He was probably sitting there, calm as ever, trying to make sense of the mess he'd made. Trying to make it sound like it was nothing, like it wasn't a huge betrayal. I told you, Liv. We just needed a little help. I'll make sure you get it back, I promise. He said it so casually. Like it was a loan he had taken from a bank, not from his own sister, not from the one person who had been there for him when nobody else was. I felt my chest tighten. My vision blurred with the weight of what was happening. He had crossed a line and he didn't even see it. Or worse, maybe he did see it but didn't care. I hung up. My heart was pounding so loudly in my ears that I couldn't hear anything else. My fingers fumbled to end the call, but I didn't care. My breath came in short gasps, my head spinning. How could he do this? How could he just take everything I had worked for and treat it like it was no big deal? My entire life, my entire future. Gone just like that. And all he could say was, "Don't worry, we'll pay you back." Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. I leaned back on the couch, the tears finally coming, hot and sharp. This wasn't just money. This wasn't just a mistake or an oversight. This was a betrayal so deep that it cut straight to the core of everything I had believed about family, about trust. I had spent my life taking care of people, helping strangers, healing wounds, mending broken bodies. I had worked hard for every cent I saved, worked through every shift, through every sleepless night. And now my brother had taken it all. The man who had promised to always have my back. The man I had trusted with my hopes, my dreams, my future. I had to do something. I had to figure out how to fix this. But I didn't know where to start. All I knew was that I couldn't just let this go. Knock, knock. Now you're about to watch the best part of the story. But before that, make sure to subscribe to my channel so we can keep going together. I didn't know what to do at first. I paced around my apartment, feeling like the walls were closing in on me. It was hard to focus on anything. My brain was stuck on a loop, replaying the phone call with Liam over and over again. We needed it, Liv. Family comes first. I stopped by the window, staring out at the darkened streets below. The city lights twinkling like a far-off dream. It felt like everything I had worked for, everything I had built, was slipping through my fingers, fading away in the night. It was more than the money. It was the betrayal, the lies, the trust one had placed in Liam, the one person I had always counted on, the one person I thought had my back no matter what. I tried to breathe, live. But how could I? How could I just let this go? How could I sit back and pretend everything was okay when my brother had just robbed me of everything I'd worked so hard for? I needed answers. And I was going to get them. I started digging. First, I opened up the messages between Liam and me from just before the wedding. At the time, everything seemed fine. He'd sent a message asking, "Are you still serious about that clinic thing?" I had responded with a simple, "Yeah, it's my future." But now, as I stared at that message, a sick feeling washed over me. I didn't even think twice about it when I first read it. But now I wondered if that message was more than just a casual check-in. Was it him testing the waters? Was it his way of gauging how attached I was to my dream? Was he already planning this theft all along? I clenched my fists. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had missed something. Something big. My mind kept racing, trying to piece together the puzzle that was my life with Liam. Had there been signs? Had I ignored them? I called Liam's wife, Amanda, next. I needed to hear from her to get her side of the story. She was always so quick to defend him. And if anyone knew anything about what was going on, it was her. When she answered the phone, there was a noticeable laugh in her voice, like I was bothering her by calling. "Oh, Liam told you, huh?" she said, her voice dripping with annoyance. "Look, you're single. You don't have kids. What do you need all that money for anyway?" I felt my face flush with anger. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. What did she just say? I tried to stay calm, but I could feel the rage building inside me. I clenched my teeth and said, "I worked for that money, Amanda. It's mine." Her response was dismissive, as if my hard work meant nothing to her. "Come on, Liv. Don't make a big deal out of it. We're family. We needed it more." Needed it more? I didn't know how to respond at first. My mind was reeling. Was she really saying that? Was she really trying to justify what they had done? I felt a lump form in my throat. I had saved every penny I had, worked endless shifts at the hospital, skipped vacations just so I could one day open a clinic, a place where I could help people the way I always dreamed of. And now it was all gone. Just like that. Because they needed it more. I slammed my phone down on the table. My hands were shaking, my heart racing. How could they do this to me, my family, my own flesh and blood? I sat down on the couch, trying to collect myself. I took a few deep breaths, but it didn't help. The rage, the pain, the frustration. It all felt like too much to bear. I thought back to everything I had sacrificed over the years. Working late into the night, missing family events, and pushing away friends, all for this one dream. The dream of owning a clinic where I could make a difference, where I could finally be in control of my own future. I thought it was within reach, but now it was gone. I kept replaying Amanda's words in my head. We needed it more. More than my future? More than everything I had worked for? That's what she was telling me? A sense of betrayal crashed over me like a wave. I'd been so naive, so trusting. For so long, I believed that Liam and Amanda had my back. But now I realized that it wasn't just about money, it was about respect, about honor. And they had none of it. I grabbed my phone again and began scrolling through the messages from Liam. I started looking at them differently now. Were there signs I missed? Were there things he said or did that should have made me question his intentions? I remembered the way he kept dodging my questions when I talked about my plans for the clinic. How he always seemed to change the subject or brush it off like it wasn't a big deal. But at the time, I didn't see it. I thought he was just being his usual carefree self. Now, looking back, it all felt so calculated. I thought about the conversations we'd had at the wedding. The way he acted when I mentioned the clinic. He wasn't excited for me. He wasn't proud. He was looking at me like I was weak, like my dream was something he could take whenever he needed it. And the worst part? I let him. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside me. I had to think clearly. I had to find the answers, and I couldn't do it if I was overwhelmed by emotions. But right now, I felt more alone than I ever had. My mind was a whirlpool of thoughts, and every new idea seemed to hurt more than the last. How had I been so blind? Why didn't I see it coming? I stared at the phone in my hands, wondering what to do next. I could call Liam again, but what would I even say? How could I confront him when I was still reeling from the shock? No. I needed to gather more information. I needed to have proof of what he'd done, something concrete to show that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't imagining this. I knew what I had to do. I wasn't going to let him get away with this. Not without a fight. 2 days later, I showed up at Liam's house. I had no plan, no script, just a cold, determined rage bubbling up inside me, mixing with a profound sense of hurt that I could no longer suppress. Every step I took toward his house felt like I was walking through thick mud. Part of me wanted to turn around, to forget about it and let it go. But I couldn't. I wouldn't. Not anymore. I wasn't leaving until I had answers. The house was eerily quiet when I stepped inside. It wasn't the usual chaos of kids running around, of voices raised in laughter or argument. It was just still. I could hear the faint hum of a motorcycle engine in the garage. Liam's tinkering with the engine like everything was normal, like he didn't just rob me of my future. I could feel my heart thudding in my chest as I walked past the empty hallway, past the kitchen where I'd once shared so many quiet moments with Liam, to the garage. There he was, bent over his bike, completely oblivious to the storm brewing behind him. I stood there for a moment watching him. The man who had been my anchor for years, my brother, the one I trusted more than anyone else, now seemed like a stranger to me. His back was to me, but the way he was moving, I could tell he had no idea what was coming. I cleared my throat, my voice cutting through the silence like a knife. "Where's my money, Liam?" The words hung in the air, heavy and unforgiving. My voice was steady, but beneath it there was a tightness and anger I could no longer hold back. The rage that had been building inside me for days exploded in that simple question. I wasn't asking anymore, I was demanding. Liam didn't look up right away. He wiped his hands on a rag, wiping off the grease from the bike. It was as if he couldn't even be bothered to face me. His casualness, his lack of urgency, only made me angrier. Finally, he stood up and turned toward me, his usual smug smile creeping across his face. "What money?" he asked, as if he didn't already know. As if he hadn't already stolen everything from me. I stared at him, my eyes burning with fury. "Don't play dumb. The $180,000. Where is it?" His smirk deepened, a cruel, almost mocking expression spreading across his face. "You'll get it back, Liv. Family shares everything, right?" It was the moment I knew. I wasn't talking to my brother anymore. I was talking to someone else. A stranger. A thief. Someone who had stolen from me, lied to me, and didn't even care. He was looking at me as if I was the one being unreasonable, as if I were the one in the wrong. "Family shares everything?" My voice came out in a whisper, sharp with disbelief. My mind was reeling, trying to process the fact that the man I trusted with everything, the man who was supposed to protect me, who promised we'd always have each other's backs, was now the one responsible for destroying me. He wasn't my brother anymore. He was the person who had taken my future and crushed it without a second thought. I felt a tightness in my chest, but I refused to let it show. I clenched my jaw, forcing back the tears that threatened to spill. I wasn't going to cry in front of him. I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of seeing me break. No, I was done with that. I had been weak for too long. I took a step forward, closing the distance between us, and I saw a flicker of unease in his eyes. But just for a second. Then it was gone, replaced by that same smug expression. "Liv, calm down. You're making this harder than it needs to be." "Harder?" My blood boiled at his words. Harder? This was the man who had ripped my world apart. And he was still trying to make me feel like I was the one in the wrong. "I'm making this harder?" I couldn't keep the disbelief out of my voice. "You took everything from me, Liam. Everything. I worked my ass off for years and you just took it. You don't even care. You're acting like it's no big deal." His eyes narrowed, his smirk faltering for a brief moment. I had his attention now. But it wasn't the kind of attention I wanted. It wasn't the kind of apology I had hoped for. I could see the defensiveness rising in him, a wall he was building between us. "You're overreacting, Liv," he said, his voice now tinged with annoyance. "It's not that big of a deal. You'll get it back. We just needed a little help." "A little help?" I repeated, my voice rising. "That was my life savings, Liam. My future. It wasn't just a little help. You took everything I had and you didn't even have the decency to ask. You didn't even think about how it would affect me." I stepped back, taking a deep breath to steady myself. The weight of betrayal pressed down on me, but I couldn't lose my focus. I had come here for answers, for closure, and I wasn't leaving until I got it. I could feel my fists clenching at my sides, my body trembling with the rage I had kept bottled up for days. This wasn't just about the money anymore. This was about principle, about the trust one had placed in him and how he had destroyed it without a second thought. Liam seemed unfazed by my outburst. He wiped his hands on the rag again, as if he were too cool to be bothered by the mess he had caused. "Liv, stop being dramatic. It's just money. We're family, right? Don't make this harder than it is." Dramatic? That word, so casually thrown at me, was like a slap in the face. He had just stolen from me and now he was dismissing it as if it were nothing. As if I was the one making a scene. I shook my head in disbelief. "I can't believe you. You've got no shame, do you?" At that moment, something inside me snapped. All the hurt, all the anger, all the frustration that I had been holding in for days came pouring out. I wasn't going to stand here and let him belittle me anymore. Not after everything. Without saying another word, I turned on my heel and walked out of the garage. My heart was pounding, my chest tight with anger, but I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. I wasn't leaving his house with nothing. I had come here for answers and I wasn't leaving until I had them. He had underestimated me. and I would make sure he paid for it. Hey, are you finding the story interesting so far? If you are, make sure to subscribe to the channel so we can continue the adventure together. The best part is just ahead. I spent the next few days gathering evidence. Every waking moment felt consumed by the task at hand, digging into the financial chaos that Liam had left behind, trying to make sense of it all. I pulled up bank alerts, Venmo transactions, old receipts, and anything else I could find. At first, it felt like a labyrinth, each piece of information leading to more questions than answers. But slowly, the pieces began to click together. Every detail I uncovered made my blood boil more than the last. It was all adding up, and it was uglier than I could have imagined. I couldn't help but feel a sense of betrayal with every transaction I uncovered. Money wasn't just money anymore, it was the thread that tied my entire world together. Each withdrawal, each transfer, each cryptic payment to a mysterious account felt like another stab to the heart. But what hurt most was that I had been blind to all of it. I had been so focused on my dream, so determined to make it happen, that I never once thought to question Liam, never once imagined he could be the one tearing it all apart. I remember sitting in my small, cluttered living room. Piles of paper scattered around me, the glow from my laptop illuminating the dark corners of the room. I had spent hours cross-referencing the bank statements with Venmo transactions, making sure everything lined up. My head throbbed with exhaustion, but I couldn't stop. I couldn't afford to stop. Not until I had the truth, the full picture. After hours of digging, I stumbled upon a trail I hadn't expected. A food truck business. Liam had opened a line of credit in my name for it. I felt a jolt of disbelief when I saw the paperwork. Fraudulent applications for loans and credit cards, all tied back to a food truck that didn't even exist. The worst part? He had used my identity to do it. At first, I couldn't make sense of it. Why a food truck? What did that have to do with his gambling debts? But then it hit me. He had been sinking deeper and deeper into financial ruin, using my savings to cover his mistakes, his addictions. And the worst part? I had no idea how deep this ran. The money he'd stolen from me wasn't just the tip of the iceberg, it was the result of years of lies, manipulation, and deceit. The more I uncovered, the more disgusted I became. I needed help. I knew I couldn't take on Liam and Amanda alone. Not with the weight of all this new information. I called Sam. Sam had been a friend of mine from the hospital. We'd worked together in the emergency department for years, and he had always struck me as the type of guy who could read people like an open book. What I didn't know was that on top of being an emergency room nurse, Sam also had a knack for investigative work. In his free time, he moonlighted as a fraud investigator. I'd always admired his attention to detail, and now I needed it more than ever. We met at a small cafe a few blocks from my apartment. A place where we could talk without the constant hum of hospital life buzzing in the background. As we sat across from each other, I could tell by the look on his face that he understood the gravity of what I was dealing with. He listened as I told him everything, what I had uncovered so far, my suspicions, and how I was beginning to connect the dots. He didn't say much at first, just nodded thoughtfully as I laid it all out. Then, after a long pause, he finally spoke. "Liv, this is bad. Really bad," Sam said, his voice calm but serious. "You're dealing with something bigger than just Liam borrowing money from you. This is identity theft, fraud. And it's not just about you anymore. If Liam's using your name to open lines of credit and rack up debt, this could affect your financial future. It could ruin your credit, your reputation, everything." I nodded, my stomach sinking. That was exactly what I feared. It wasn't just the money. It was everything. My life had been hijacked by someone I trusted. But Sam was right. I couldn't let him get away with this. I needed to fight back. Sam pulled out his phone, scrolling through a few apps. "I can help you dig deeper. We'll need to track every transaction, every line of credit, every hidden payment. If we can find the paper trail, we'll have the proof we need to take this to the authorities." As he spoke, I felt a small spark of hope. It wasn't much, but it was something. For the first time in days, I didn't feel so alone in this. I had someone on my side who knew what he was doing, who could help me make sense of the chaos that had become my life. We spent the next few hours going through every detail together. Sam's approach was methodical, precise. Where I was overwhelmed by emotion, he was steady, focused on the facts. And Slowly but surely, we began to uncover more about Liam's scheme. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. There were payments to gambling sites, transfers to unknown accounts, all using my name and my social security number. My savings had gone toward paying off Liam's debts, covering his failures. And then there were the lies. But the more I uncovered, the more I realized I wasn't just facing the consequences of Liam's actions. I was facing the consequences of my blind trust of not questioning him sooner. I had to confront the fact that I had let my own brother take advantage of me for years. By the time we finished, the weight of everything I had uncovered was almost too much to bear. Sam's face was grim as he looked up from his phone. "It's worse than I thought, Liv. I'll help you take this to the authorities, but you need to be ready for the fallout. This isn't just about getting your money back. This could be a long, drawn-out process. And with Liam involved, it could get ugly." I nodded, the reality of the situation settling in. But one thing was clear. I wasn't going to sit by and let him get away with it. I had had enough. This wasn't just about recovering money. This was about reclaiming my life. It was about fighting back against the betrayal, against the lies, and against the man who had used me as a pawn in his game. And now I was ready to make sure that Liam would pay for what he'd done. The day of reckoning came sooner than I expected. It had been a whirlwind since the moment I decided to take action, but it didn't feel like any of this was moving fast enough. Every time I uncovered more evidence, every time I pieced together the truth about Liam's betrayal, I felt a little less in control of my own life. But the day it all changed, when I knew things were finally out of my hands and in the hands of the law, it came with a shocking swiftness that left me feeling both relieved and uneasy. I had everything I needed. Screenshots, phone records, fraudulent food truck invoices, the paper trail of my life being stolen piece by piece. I thought about all the time I spent trying to make sense of the wreckage of my family, the sleepless nights spent tracing every transaction, and the frustration of knowing that Liam had been using my trust like a weapon. But I couldn't afford to waste any more time. He had already taken too much. It was time for him to pay. Walking straight into the authorities' office felt surreal. The walls seemed to close in around me as I handed over the evidence. Watching the officers sift through everything with practiced efficiency. The quiet hum of the fluorescent lights above me was the only sound in the room. My heart raced, and yet, somehow, I felt more detached than I expected. This wasn't a victory, it was just the next step. It was the beginning of the end, but I didn't feel like I was winning. Not yet. Within hours, the authorities were at Liam's door, arresting him and Amanda. I didn't know what I was expecting when the news came, but the reality of it was a strange mix of satisfaction and dread. I had to remind myself, this wasn't about revenge. This wasn't about making them feel what I felt. This was about justice. Justice for everything they had stolen from me, for every lie they told, for every moment they made me feel like I was crazy for trusting them. When the investigators showed up at his house, I was on edge, waiting for the moment when I would finally know how it all unfolded. Liam's face was frozen in shock when the investigators read him his rights. I couldn't stop myself from imagining what he must have been feeling in that moment. The smirk he'd worn just days ago, so smug, so confident, was gone. In its place was something much uglier. Panic and disbelief. I don't know why, but I had expected him to be defiant, to stand his ground and act like he was still in control. But all I saw in his eyes was the realization that he had gone too far this time, that he couldn't talk his way out of this. And for the first time in years, I wasn't the one who was powerless. For the first time, Liam was the one who had to answer for his actions. I couldn't deny the satisfaction that rushed through me when I thought of that moment. Liam, the man who had promised me he'd always protect me, was finally facing the consequences of his actions. But even that didn't feel like enough. It wasn't going to make up for the years he'd taken from me, for the broken trust, the money that was gone, and the future that had been stolen from me. The trial was a circus. The media swarmed the courthouse and the cameras flashed every time Liam or Amanda made an appearance. I tried to tune out the noise, but it was impossible not to be aware of the drama unfolding around me. For some, this was just another scandal, another story to fill the tabloids, but for me, this was everything. This was my life, my future being put on trial in front of everyone I knew. And I hated it, but I wasn't there for the drama. I wasn't there to watch a show or to get some kind of satisfaction from seeing them squirm. No, I was there for justice. I was there because I had earned that right. Because what Liam and Amanda had done to me wasn't just illegal, it was morally wrong. It was wrong in every way. And it was time for the world to see that. When the judge sentenced Liam and Amanda, it felt like a weight had been lifted from my chest. The courtroom was quiet for a moment, and I could hear the words echoing in my head. But even then, it didn't feel like the end of anything. It wasn't the final release I had been expecting. The truth is, no sentence could ever give me back the years I'd lost, the money that had been stolen, or the dream of my clinic that seemed more distant than ever. I didn't get all my money back. The system doesn't work like that. The restitution process was long, slow, and complicated. In the end, it didn't even cover a fraction of what they took from me. But I got something more important. The chance to rebuild. The chance to start over. I sold the family house. The place where Liam and I had grown up. The place where so many memories had been made, both good and bad. It had become a prison to me, a constant reminder of what had happened, of how trust had been betrayed, how the life I thought I had was nothing but a fragile illusion. I sold it, and with the proceeds I bought a new place, a small, modest apartment that was mine, truly mine, no ties to the past, no strings holding me back. And with that new place came a new beginning. Starting over wasn't easy. It was hard to let go of everything I'd built in the past. Every time I stepped into the apartment, I felt a pang of sadness, but it wasn't regret. I wasn't sad about leaving behind the house. I was sad about the loss of innocence, about how my own family had hurt me. But as time passed, the grief faded. The anger, too. I started saving again. It wasn't much at first, just a small amount here and there, but I was more careful now, more guarded. I couldn't let anyone take from me again. Not like that. Not without a fight. And so, life goes on. The clinic might still be a dream for now, but I'll keep fighting for it. One step at a time. I won't let it go. I won't let them take that from me, too. If anything, this experience has taught me that dreams aren't just things that happen to you, they're things you build. You have to protect them, you have to fight for them. And while I might not have everything I wanted, I still have that dream, and that's enough for me to keep going. One day at a time. What do you think about today's story? I'd love to hear your thoughts. So feel free to leave a comment and share your perspective or feedback. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you won't miss the next one. Your support means a lot to me, and I'm excited to bring more stories to you. Thank you for listening all the way through. I really appreciate you being here.